Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about how to play the piano super soft or extremely softly. I'm not sure how I'll title the video yet. So not just a regular piano dynamic, but more like a pianissimo, like triple P dynamic, which most of the time just means the softest sound that you can possibly produce at the piano. And on this channel, I hope to share with you strategies, thoughts, methods, insights, etc., often of my own creation that I hope will help you in your piano playing, hopefully other areas of your life as well. So this is something that many students and many pianists struggle with. It certainly is something I think adds a great deal to my own playing and expressivity perhaps. And my students, if they're executing this well, I think it's a big part of the reason why they're able to sound so musical, why their playing sounds emotional, and so on. And there's a number of different subtopics here. I would say that there are two main means to play softly, or two types of very soft playing. And then later, maybe I'll talk through some other topics, such as what techniques make it much easier to play super softly. So first, in terms of the two different ways to play softly, I think broadly of going to the bottom of the key very slowly, and also playing only at the surface of the key. And you can say that it's to the middle of the key or to the point of sound. And I'm not going to talk about the exact mechanics of the piano. I don't claim to be an absolute expert on that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm going to talk, hopefully, in ways that seem easy to understand in layperson, regular person terms. So, but we do know that on a real piano, of course, there are hammers that are striking strings. Like when I play this note, there's a hammer that strikes a set of strings inside of the piano. Obviously, for a keyboard, it's even a simulation of that, right? It's just a digital recording of a certain sound, and it'll play at a certain volume depending on the key velocity. So the faster that the key goes down, especially if it goes all the way to the bottom, the louder that it will be. And the slower that it goes to the bottom, and this is assuming the key goes all the way to the key bed or to the bottom, the softer that it'll be. So if I make this key go down very quickly, it's going to be pretty loud. And if I move it down fairly slowly, it might be medium, it might be softer. And so I'm trying to find, like, for instance, if I go down like that, there's no sound at all. Okay, that's a little bit. Okay. I don't know if you can hear that. So it's like the barest minimum of sound. You can kind of find that, exploring that difference between absolute silence and the very quiet. So now that's really soft, but it's not really super practical if you're trying to play at a certain speed, because there's not enough time for you to go like, that's too loud. Right? So if I want to play quickly and soft, and in many other scenarios, maybe I don't want to go that slowly to the bottom, because that's quite difficult to control in some contexts. Well, I can also play just to the middle of the key or to the point of sound. So that means maybe around here or so. And I'm not moving the key all the way to the bottom. Right, so even on this upright, it's a matter of not going all the way to the bottom of the key. So in this case, it's like, if I go like this, well, the hammer hasn't even reached the strings yet, therefore no sound is produced. But if I go just to the point where the hammer touches the strings, it'll come out very softly. Because the velocity also is not very high, because it's just reached the strings. And so this is what I call, surfacey playing, or like super surfacey playing, surface. I guess usually I just call it that, super soft playing, barely even brushing the surface of the key. So that makes it possible to play very quietly without going all the way to the bottom of the key. If you try to play just as quickly and go to the bottom of the key, I think you'll find that it's not really possible. Because if you go all the way to the bottom of the key and you try to play quickly, well, the hammers are going to strike with a higher velocity. So again, either you can go to the bottom very slowly, or you can play just to the surface of the key or so, not all the way to the bottom of the key. So those are kind of the two main ways in terms of touch. Now, I would say there are some other considerations here as well too. And I'll say briefly, in some of my other videos, I talk about holding and relaxing, which is basically you hold any given note or chord, and then you relax every single other part of your body in order to access your natural arm weight. If you search David Chang holding and relaxing, you will find that. And if you search for David Chang all out with accents practice, you will find that as well too. Or maybe it's just David Chang all out with accents. And probably I'll make a playlist about this too at some point in terms of my physical methodology. And playing with a nice, healthy loud, that can also help a great deal in accessing your arm weight, because this concept is going to be important in what I'm going to talk about in a moment. And there's also some other videos in my physical methodology when I'm talking about hand shape and orientation. If you search my name, hand shape and orientation, or there's a playlist that's made, hopefully, that may help as well. But for the sake of brevity, so this video doesn't end up too long, maybe I'll just talk briefly about the holding and relaxing and all out with accents. So in terms of the holding and relaxing, this is just the general idea of you place it, and then we'll just say we have a general, good hand shape and orientation. Won't go too far into that in this video. And then you are relaxing fingers that are in the air. If any fingers are depressed, you're relaxing those, relaxing arms, shoulders, and everything there. Apologies if this is at all slightly slanted or anything. Okay, so you relax all of this, relax it. So the idea is that if you completely let go of everything, fingers in the air, wrists, arms, shoulder area, you have some flexibility here, and you try to let go of that remaining 5%, 3%, 1% of tension in your shoulders, upper body, and everything, that your arm weight will just be hanging here, nice and heavy, nice and easy. And you should feel hopefully pretty good in this condition. And this is the condition through which we would want to be able to play with this all out with accents touch. And it's basically a touch that sounds something like it's nice and weighty. There are accents or louder notes sometimes. I think the easiest way to think of it for now, maybe even ignore the accents part if you don't know what that means, is it's just a nice, weighty, healthy, loud. There's another video I've made that I called, I believe, 3-dimensionality in movement for something about piano. If you search for that one, you'll find it. And that's really about healthy wrist and arm movements and kind of coming up with some of your own. So with these ideas in mind, if you're able to do this even passively, so you're even passively able to, you've explored, you found this overall relaxation through some practice and contemplation. Relax the fingers, arms, wrists, everything, shoulders. You can even close your eyes and think okay, is this genuinely completely relaxed? Just the same as if I were just sitting here, not doing anything. And hopefully you found some of that heaviness with which you can move around. And hopefully then you can engage healthily in this all out with accents touch. Maybe you're using good wrist and arm movements. So without going into too much detail, let's assume that that's at least okay. That you even, honestly, even if you get a small percentage of some of those concepts I talked about, it probably will help a great deal. So for instance, if I'm playing like that, and I'm very relaxed in the arm, nice and loud, weighty, the fact that I'm relaxed with arm weight and everything, believe it or not, that's going to help me a great deal to play very softly, because I want to feel exactly just as relaxed in my shoulder, upper arm, elbow area, lower arm, wrist, and everything. And the only difference here, and this might seem a bit tricky at first, is that I just will not go to the bottom of the key with all that weight anymore. I'm just going to dance a bit at the surface of the key. So the tricky thing here, if you want the notes to come out pretty consistently, is that you don't want to do anything different here. What everybody does, and honestly, when I was holding the phone earlier over my other hand, I was guilty probably of kind of pressing like a little bit on it, just because I was like trying to get a good angle and maybe not focusing correctly. But in any case, you don't want to actually like be very careful and press very cautiously from the top of the keys, because some of the notes won't come out. So instead, you want to maintain just as much relaxation in your entire mechanism, just as if you're, because part of the point of all out is to find that confidence. That confident, grounded weightiness, and that just feels really nice and easy and loose and good. And when you play softly, instead of stiffening up and doing something completely different, you actually feel just as good here. But somehow, instead of going to the bottom of the keys, because you shouldn't be pressing at the bottom of the keys anyway. You're only going to like the middle, or the surface of the key, the way that I was describing earlier in the video. Yeah, something like that. So most of the time, to play extremely, extremely quietly, I advocate playing to the middle of the key or the surface of the key. There are some schools of thought that some of them may disagree with this. They may say something like, oh, if you play to the surface of the key or the middle of the key, you might be holding up your weight in an artificial way. But I'm going to respectfully disagree here, because even if I'm playing to the bottom of the key, I'm not pressing there anyway. I am not at all trying to like play super hard. When I'm playing to the bottom of the key, it's something like this. If I were to play on somebody's arm, they would feel completely fine. And if I'm playing to the surface of the key, it's something like this. It feels very similar to me. The only difference is the amount of weightiness that I'm letting into a specific part of the piano. Now, on top of this, we can also add the left pedal as well, too. And the left pedal, I won't talk about pedaling technique in this video, but the left pedal is the una corda, literally one string. And that's somewhat of a misnomer now, because basically on a grand piano, many of the keys, when you play them, the corresponding hammer will strike a set of 3 strings. Some of them, depending on the design, it might be a set of 2 strings. It might even be one like super thick string. But in any case, believe it or not, when you step on that left pedal, the una corda, the entire action of the piano, like the keyboard of the piano, will actually shift a little bit over. And then if the hammer were originally going to strike 3 strings, now it's going to strike 2. If it were originally going to strike 2 strings, likely it's going to strike 1. And so it's somewhat of a misnomer, because if originally it were 3 strings and now it's striking 2, that's not actually literally 1 string. But in any case, it not only makes the sound softer, it also will literally make the timbre, like the actual wave shape, a little bit darker, and some might say darker, muted, more mysterious. And so, for instance, when I'm playing, I honestly don't think there's a need to show the foot here, because I'm not trying to show you pedaling technique. So if I'm playing this, that's already very soft, hopefully. And if I put down the left pedal, hopefully it's even a little bit softer. Compare that with, that's kind of like, maybe like regular softish, medium-ish. loud, loud or very loud. So the levels really should be very distinctly different. And yeah, so I guess those are some of my overthoughts in terms of, I think that this, the surfacey playing that I'm describing here, I believe it's the most versatile. It is the only way that you can play extremely, extremely soft at fast speeds and medium speeds if they're running passages and so on. I think that going to the bottom of the keys very slowly, I would probably use that more for a pianissimo, soft, very soft. But for the very, very soft, if I'm really trying to make the barest bit of sound possible, I almost certainly am going to play more surfacey. I won't play to the bottom of the key because I don't feel like I feel like it's less reliable in some ways, and it's harder to achieve the sound that I'm looking for. There might be some exceptions to that. Maybe I want a very, very soft sound with a little bit more substance, and in that case, I might go all the way to the bottom of the key. But anyway, I feel like even in light of everything that I've said during this video, two of the main ways that I think about achieving these extremely, extremely soft sounds are doing this all loud weighty touch like I showed you with a totally relaxed mechanism, and then keeping that totally relaxed mechanism and playing only to the surface of the key like I was describing. So in other words, there's this overall framework of starting loud, and then maybe you're gradually getting softer into this extremely, extremely soft. To be fair, I don't normally practice in that way, as in I don't go like loud and then medium and then soft and then like very, very soft, and then I add the left pedal. The left pedal should be like the icing on the cake, the unicorda. You shouldn't depend on it. You should be able to play like very, very softly with just your hands. And then you add the unicorda as well, right? Just as like a little bonus. But a student could practice it this way, and I think it might be worthwhile to practice these different dynamic shades. I'm just so used to it at this point that I don't find it a necessity to go from loud all the way through these different levels to very soft. So the idea is that you feel this grounded weightiness, and then you're able to keep that grounded weightiness feeling. I know I'm, again, being purposely redundant because I think it leads to better learning. It's recorded in different areas in your brain, leading to deeper learning and so on. And you keep that, but then I only play to the surface of the key without carefully pressing from the top, which is going to result in some of the notes not coming out. Now, the other way to go about this is silent practicing. That means I like to tap on the surface of the keys with no... Actually, I'll do it maybe over here or so. Let's say I'm playing, so I'm tapping on the surface of the key. The keys are not even going down. And then I might tap so that the keys are going down a little tiny bit. And this is how I would instruct students a lot of the time too. Maybe over here. Okay. And then I'd say like, oh, student, why don't you play even a little bit more into the key so it goes in just a tiny bit more, but still no sound. At a certain point, it'll be impossible. See, some of them are sounding a little bit. And then you're like, okay, can you just go a little bit more and try to get it consistent? Now, of course, it doesn't have to be like this like fast, virtuosic little passage, but that's the general idea. Now we're, instead of going from that all loud grounded weightiness to the very, very soft, now we're going from literally total silence, no sound at all, into the very, very soft. Now, the tricky thing with the going from silence into the very, very soft is that there's a risk of, again, that careful, unhelpful, like cautious, hold up all of your weight type of playing. That is why I often think starting with that all loud practice is good first. And then even when you're doing silent practice, could you stay just as relaxed in this mechanism, right? In your overall arm and upper structure of your body and so on. So from here, again, if it were all loud, and then, I'm playing softer and softer, maybe I'm at the left pedal. Okay, now the other way would be to start from silence. So I'm literally silent. I'm like, the keys are not even going down at all, hopefully, as long as they're moving a tiny bit. Okay, now I'm going to go down like a little tiny bit more. All right, so there's still no sound. And then I'll say like, hey, why don't you try to play silently, but then go down even a little bit more. And at a certain point, it'll be impossible to not make a sound. And then I'll say to the student, hey, you hear how a little tiny sound comes out once in a while? Well, see if you can make that consistent. Go down a little tiny bit more. And still totally relax and free here. And of course, it might be, like a very slow passage. And then, of course, you can add the left pedal. Okay. All right. That's probably enough of that. Because that is, that's, well, it obviously is just C, G, A, B, C over and over again, but it is the beginning of it's part of one of the variations of Beethoven's variations in C minor. So I would, try to play this very quiet. And so I would start very quiet and then crescendo and get louder from there and so on. Anyway, I hope some of this is helpful. Maybe sometimes it might be helpful to break this into multiple videos. I'm sure there will be times in the future where I'm recording just kind of shorter videos that just has one concept from these longer videos. But this should presumably give you plenty of ideas for achieving this very, very soft, extremely, extremely soft playing. Let me know what you found most helpful. Let me know what questions you still have. I hope that you'll utilize at least some of these ideas. Again, either a playlist will be created or you can search videos such as my name and then all out with accents, my name and then holding and relaxing, maybe even my name and then, hand orientation and shape or hand orientation. I think there's 1 or 2 videos on that. There's also a 3-dimensionality video as well too. So all of this will help you. And then we have these overall frameworks of playing all loud and then getting gradually softer until you get to that very, very, very soft. And then maybe you add the left pedal on top of that, the unicorda. And then you can also start from silent, literally no sound playing. And you go a little bit into the surface of the key, and then finally you make little tiny bits of sound, and then you make a consistent, very, very soft sound while still keeping this mechanism relaxed. And again, briefly, I think typically this surfacey, don't go all the way to the bottom of the keys playing, is going to be the most versatile for the very, very softest sounds that you can possibly produce. But sometimes going all the way to the bottom of the keys, it may be appropriate in certain situations. So yeah, I think that's probably it. So let me know if you have questions. And if you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, let people know about the channel. And looking forward to the next one.